another edition of Tanya Talks. I'm your host, Tanya Ricketts, and I'm going to say happy Monday to everybody. Today is December the 21st, and I'm not sure what kind of powerful day it's supposed to be, but it's supposed to be some special powerful day. So if Josephine, I'll let you share it with us. But welcome to the show, Josephine Marcellin, who is the CEO of Bradley Gale Media Group. And what she does is she provides a service of social media strategist, which helps businesses leverage social media so that they can build an authority status online. And we need more people like you because so many people starting out in this whole COVID pandemic and discovering their talents and are looking to leverage and see how they can have a stronger presence online. So thank you for what you do and welcome to our show today.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So
I'm actually excited for this, very happy.
Yes, and I just know because I can have probably a 24-hour conversation with you and not get tired. So I appreciate that. So we only have an hour, and I'm like, how are we going to get everything that we want said in an hour? Because you're just a wealth of knowledge, a breath of fresh air. And today you are going to walk us through and show us and talk to us about the lies we tell ourselves and how that stops us from living our true potential and just soaring and thriving in life. So I'm looking forward to all the little nuggets that I know you've shared with me personally on how our audience can overcome whatever it is they're doing and start thriving. So let's get started.
Let's get started. So, this topic is near and dear to my heart because I think we all go through this period of time where we basically, I think that when I look at a lot of people, they basically stifle who they really are.
Yes.
And it really is because, one, they may not even realize the potential that they've got. Two, they may have been told by others that they will never amount to anything. So
yes.
These are lies that other people tell them that they take on, right? And the environment that they live in may actually be restricting them, minimizing their potential, and they're not even realizing it. And it's so sad to me when I see individuals that have so much potential that lies within them that they really just, play very, very small, because they don't even believe in themselves enough that they can stretch and reach the kinds of individuals that they really could be. Yes. So I'm really happy to talk about this today because I think people need to sort of wake up and say, hey, you know what? I didn't even realize I'm telling myself these lies. I thought they were true.
Well, it's funny because there's a saying, I don't know who said it, but I remember hearing it one time, somebody saying that there's so many untapped potential that goes to graves because people just don't tap into the truth of who they are, the power of who they are, their purpose, all of the rest of it, just because of all these limited beliefs, these lies that they've taken on, as you say, in their lives. What does some of them look like? For the audience listening, how can somebody identify with a lie that they're living right now in this current situation that they're in with the pandemic and everything that we're going through?
I think if you just look at the lies, there are these lies that we tell ourselves, like, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too short.
We missed the boat.
All these things, right? You sort of try and define yourself based on, and you're giving yourself excuses.
Yes.
Based on what your perception is that is supposed to be able to lead you to success.
Yeah.
And the basic ones are like I just said, I'm too old, I'm too young. I'm too fat, I'm too thin. I'm too short, I'm too tall, right?
I don't have an education, I got to go to school for it, I'm not smart enough. All these things.
All these things. And when it comes down to it, you can find examples of people who have the same characteristics as you do that have been able to succeed.
Yes.
So why is it that we seem to hold on to these excuses, right? These lies to try and protect ourselves. And it's not, you know what? I have to tell your audience right now, it's not your fault. It really is not your fault. If you remember, when we were kids, between ages 0 from the time we were born till age 7, we're just like sponges.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the environment in which you grew up, what you saw around you, how people reacted, even when in terms of, money, how people regarded money, right? And our relationship with money up until this day, everything,
That's
who we are,
huge.
is huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is who we were was formed between ages 0 and 7. That is
Mm-hmm.
when we were just capturing everything. And at that point in time, if we were in an environment where there was any kind of negativity, maybe, because someone said to me, when we're born, we only have two fears: a fear of loud noises and a fear of falling down. That's it. Only two fears: a fear of loud noises and a fear of falling down.
Mm-hmm.
But then as we grow older, your parents would say, oh, don't do that. You'll get hurt, right? Don't do this. No, you can't do this, right? So we hear all these words that actually make us fearful, actually help us sort of start giving us the perception that this is okay, but this is not. I'm okay if I'm this way, but I'm not okay if I'm that.
Yes, that's huge. Yeah, yeah. Like I'm saying, it's huge for everything because it's so woven into every fiber of our
Exactly.
being. And then you go into the school system, and then you go into
Yep.
jobs, and
Yes.
it's just constantly recycling itself and reconfirming this narrative of all these lies.
And you mentioned that, people, the richest place in the world is a cemetery, because
Yeah.
it is like, I mean, that's the richest real estate you can find, because it's the sea of broken dreams, and
Yes.
all that potential that actually went to waste and those individuals never got fulfilled, never lived up to their potential, never lived on purpose, basically lived lives of quiet desperation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just disheartening for me when I see people not wanting to awake. And you know during this COVID time, I realized that a lot of people started thinking, maybe it's not as I thought it was. Maybe there is something else I should be paying attention to. So regardless of the challenges that happen in COVID, I actually see COVID as being an awakening of sorts, because there's
Mm.
everyone that thought that, I would work with this company until whenever. No one saw this pandemic coming, and then realized, wait a minute, there's things that I didn't believe about myself, or I couldn't believe about myself, that I need to start finding out more, because I need to evolve. I need to change. In order for me to thrive in this new world, I need to change.
Yes.
So the last year has been challenging, but I think, and I was on a podcast earlier this year, and that's the only word I could use to express what I felt was happening, was an awakening. And I
Mm-hmm.
really believe that your audience tonight, if they listen to what we're sharing with them, that they will go through their own awakening, and hopefully they can apply some of the things that have helped me. Because listen, I went through this process as the same as everybody else. All right. I was telling myself lies as well, believe me. Right.
And sometimes I still think I'm telling myself.
But you can't, right? You
Yes.
can't tell yourself lies, because at the end of the day, and one of my greatest heroes was my dad. And he
Mm-hmm.
always said to me, he was a boxing fan. So he always said, life is going to throw you some right hooks. Okay. He always talked in parallels. Life is going to throw you some right hooks, and you'll fall to the pad many, many times. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the only person that loses is the person that stays down and
Stays
doesn't.
down. Right.
You got to sort of think, okay, get up, think about how you missed the right hook coming, and figure
Mm-hmm.
out how you're going to prevent it from hitting you again.
Mm-hmm.
The more you do that, the more you'll get resilient, and the more you'll be able to survive and thrive. And you'll knock life down on its butt rather than you being
Right.
knocked down on yours.
Right. And
Right?
everybody's got to find that little entry point for themselves, I feel,
Yes,
to when they get back up, and why did I get knocked down? Why did I get
exactly. Exactly.
so when would you say is one of your more defining aha moments where you woke up to the truth and you stopped lying to yourself and you woke up to your own truth? I'm sure you've had many of those moments, but any stand I'm sure. I know you have.
Oh yeah. So for me, I think one of the defining moments for me was not too long ago. Um, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. I did like everybody else. I came up to. I originally am from St. Lucia. I came up to Canada, went to university, got a university degree, went into corporate, right,
You're the
and
cookie cutter.
pretty cookie cutter, right? Actually, you know what? It wasn't supposed to be cookie cutter. I was actually supposed to go back home and work with my dad. But what happened was I fell in love with technology. And technology, the place for me to develop my technology skills would be in North America, not back home, because they didn't have the technology at that time. So I decided I wanted to go on an adventure of my own, right?
I'm not surprised that you would want to go to.
I know. So yeah, so I ended up, for me, it was an opportunity for me to learn, to grow, and the lies that I think I was telling myself basically for me, I didn't care that I was young. I was always the youngest in any class I was. So for me, it was always a matter of just keeping my eye on the prize and not worrying about anyone around me. Just keep going. I don't think I really worried about my demeanor, but I did. I think I did have, because when you being raised in the Caribbean, one of the key things that you're told is kids are seen but not heard.
Yes.
You have to respect your elders. Right? Now being indoctrinated.
I didn't do very well in that area.
I actually, I towed the line. Right? So going into corporate, it was always these things in the back of my mind: respectful to your elders. So one of the things that actually had a limited impact on me was that I never spoke my mind. I did not. If there was something going on in a meeting, I would think about doing it, saying it, but I wouldn't say it because I wanted to be sure that it was perfect and so on. And that actually had created limitations for me going forward. But as I grew and I moved up the ladder, I became more and more confident, and I was able to speak more and more. But then what happened was that because I was so focused on growth and development and in demonstrating that, yes, any challenge you gave me, I would be able to do it. One of the things that I told myself, the lies, was that I was superhuman, that I could withstand anything, that it didn't matter, I would be able to overcome anything. And that actually got me in trouble because I stopped paying attention to the signals my body was giving me. I stopped paying attention to everything around me, and I ended up just falling flat on my face, right? Health issues that knocked me out of the running for about 4 months, and actually put me in a little state of depression because, hey, I actually realized that I am not superhuman. And then another lie came up at that time: I'm not good enough. Because I'm not superhuman, I must not be good enough. Right? And that started me down a trail where I started losing my confidence, losing.
And it's funny how quickly it goes, right?
It goes like quickly.
At warp speed.
I had no problems before just barging along, but as soon as you see this whole idea that I was superhuman, I could do anything, I could accomplish anything, and then when my body failed me, then I started feeling I was not good enough, which means my confidence started waning, and I just basically said, can't do it. I did not feel that. It's almost like a little bit of the imposter syndrome, right? You feel that you're not, because you're not good enough, they're going to find you out.
Like anybody that tells me that never, the fake it till you make it, I'm like, no, I'm not going to fake it till I make it, because it'll catch up with me. Okay.
Oh yeah, it will. It will. If you don't know what you're doing, it's gonna catch.
Yes.
Funny thing is, I knew what I was doing, but I doubted myself.
Yes.
And one of the things that I decided was that, you know what, if I didn't feel comfortable in my skin in that environment, I needed to leave. And so I left and started to find out who I really was and what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to go back into that environment because, frankly, the amount of health issues I faced, I didn't feel that I was strong enough to actually go back into that level, because my job was very, very stressful. It was extremely stressful. And so I love the internet, I love technology. So I started digging down into the internet, looking at what worked, started twiddling, trying some things out, got things that worked for me. And then people started coming to and says, can you help me? And that's how the digital marketing agency was born. Nice. So, so what I realized over the last 3 years was I am not too old. I am not too young. I am just perfect the way that I am. And I am enough. I was enough growing. I was always enough. I was born enough. And whatever external to me, whatever there is external to me that is giving me the impression that I'm not, then that doesn't matter. I remember I actually went through many personal development courses just to make sure that I sort of got rid of this to understand that I am actually good. I'm good. Right, I'm really good. Right. Even though other people were saying, geez, you're pretty good at what you do. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. But there's this still imposter syndrome, and it's crazy, right?
It's funny when you talk about the lie, it's not sustainable. Like what I'm hearing when you're giving, sharing your story with us, is the lies aren't sustainable. No, they're not. And eventually it shows up on your body physically, because you're living the truth, it's just, you're healthier, you're happier, you're more energetic. The lies just are not sustainable.
Absolutely not, because you have to think about it. The lies are draining. Mm-hmm. If you're trying and keep up an impression of who you not really are authentically, that takes a lot of energy to do. Mm-hmm. So living authentically is the best thing you could do. Now, a lot of
it's the most challenging though.
It is. And that's why I'll say the things that I learned about getting rid of the lies is, first of all, you have to generate a belief system that is going to enable you to understand that the way you think is a factor of how you were brought up, mm-hmm. what you were exposed to, what you were told to. It has nothing to do with who you are. And every single thing that you may say to yourself that limits you, all you have to do is look around for examples of people who face the same situations as you and are able to be successful. Mm-hmm. So for those people that think they're too old, think about Abraham Lincoln and how many failures he went through. I mean, he actually continued failing year after year after year after year until he finally became the president of the United States. Mm-hmm. And then some people may think that they're too young. And I just want them to know that, do you know back in 1948 that there was the youngest student that gained entrance into Harvard at age 14. And since then, there have been kids at age 10 that have gotten college degrees. Mm-hmm. There's a kid who, I think it was at age 13, created his own investment firm, right? And was trading. And, there's all these kids that have never been limited by limiting beliefs, and they've been able to thrive.
And those are the parents that believed in them, right?
And those are the parents that believed and supported them and said, hey, you know what? It's like my son. I remember when he was 5 years old, I said, what do you want to be? And he said he wanted to be a scientist artist. And I'm like, okay, don't know what that is, but whatever it is, go for it, right? Scientist, artist, two ends of the spectrum, right?
Yes.
But I went, because kids are born with certain gifts and you want to support them. So think about the environment that you're in, and you have to change your belief system. And it's hard if you try and do it on your own. And it's hard if you try and do it in the same environment that has actually been keeping you down.
So there's two
So
pieces to it, right? Because you are right that it is hard to do it in the environment that you're currently in, your social settings, your circles, the
yes.
job that you're in,
Yep.
and and doing it alone is another piece. And I know even for myself going through the transition, um, I didn't know how, because I'm sure the audience can attest to this. Like, where do you begin? Because it's not like you can just walk up, pick and move out of your house. You've got a family,
No.
you've got, what do you do? And I think that that's probably what discourages people from coming out of the lie and moving into their truth is, what do I do and how do I do
Right.
it?
So if you know that the lie is keeping you down, and you looked around and saw individuals who, quote unquote, they're operating under this lie but still being successful, first thing you have to do is become true to yourself. And someone said, there's a phrase that I keep referring to every single day: if you're gonna doubt something, doubt your limitations. I'm
Mm,
putting that on a t-shirt.
good. Then we'll buy one.
If you're gonna doubt something, doubt your limitations.
Yes.
Because every time you think that there's something limiting you, and it's funny because I've seen this so many times. When you get a certain belief system and you say, okay, I'm going to break through, I'm no longer going to accept this lie. Someone always says to me, the devil is a liar. The devil is always there trying to get at you, but he's a liar, and you have to recognize that and push through. Well, every time you're trying to break through that barrier and making change, what happens is that there's something called resistance that comes on full force. Everything seems to be falling apart. Now, most people will say, oh, you see, I knew it wasn't going to work. Oh, I knew it. But when you see all this stuff going wrong, you should start feeling joyful, because that means you're just about making the breakthrough, right?
Right.
Now, in terms of the environment, you can't really leave your house but you can create your own personal space within that household.
Yes.
You can have your own personal time. Like, for instance, for me, I truly, especially since I got ill, I really know that practicing mindfulness and meditation has to be part of my practice, because it helps manage my stress. It keeps me focused. It helps me develop clarity. I never used to do that when I was just go, 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 go in the corporate world. But now, every single morning, I'm up. I'm an early bird, so I'm up before anyone is up. I'm up at around 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and that's my quiet time. That's the time I take for me. That's the time I take for me to re-engage with who I am and really truly understand what it is that I, as a person, would feel self-fulfilled if I were able to accomplish. It has nothing to do with what other people feel is success. It has to do with what is going to fill my soul, fill my heart, right? And then once the day starts, I have actively, over the last few years, made sure that I have reached out to communities that I connect with, people I connect, like yourself, Tanya, right? Right?
Well, I'm laughing because I'm thinking about your meditation and I'm thinking about all those little pieces that you do and take time for yourself. I remember a time in my own personal life where everybody around me, when you talk about the from the childhood to 7 years old, everybody around me was, it can't happen. I'm a very big visionary. And if I put anybody in my soul to see what's in it, I realized as growing up, it started to overwhelm people.
Yeah.
So I slowly started to just shut it down and dim my own light as a result of it. And I remember those lies we tell ourselves. I do mirror work, I do meditation, I do journaling, I do video work, like you name it, I'm all engaged in it because there's just something inside of you that knows that something isn't right.
That's
And
right.
you're willing to put the work in to find out what that is. And I believe in know thyself. Um, and I remember all of a sudden deciding that I wanted to be surrounded by people that believed in possibilities, not not limits, but
Yes.
possibilities.
Yes.
And it didn't happen right away for me because I realized that that belief system in me was it can't be done.
Yes.
So the surface was, it can't be done, but the core, no, or the reverse was the surface. I was telling myself it can be done, it can be, but I really didn't believe it because it wasn't something put inside of me. But I made up my mind in that decision that we make, when we make that decision, that I want to be surrounded by people that help out possibilities. And all of a sudden, one day, I was waiting for resistance, and everybody around me, I realized, including yourself, all corners of the earth were like, okay, well, this is possible. And I was like, oh my goodness. However, I believe that the core of who you are as the individual has to change first.
Yes.
So when you're talking,
Absolutely.
Josephine, how you do your meditation, and it has to be initiated in my personal belief system. It has to be initiated and really solidified, and the foundation has to be rebuilt from
Yes.
within, and then it'll
Absolutely.
show up externally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you really have to, and it's almost as if people are afraid of destruction, right? But in order, remember the phoenix coming out of the flame of the ashes, in order for you to be reborn, to actually truly let your potential shine, there has to be some form of destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Destructions of those lies, destruction of maybe, it's sad but true. There are some people in your life you will have to let go because continually they'll try and hold you back. And I had a vision one time that it was almost as if I was just rising up, and it's it actually, I'm a very imaginative sort, right?
Yeah, right. So I'm laughing.
Everything is visual.
I'm looking at my mirror right here. Okay, guys. Because I went through the portal in my dream. Okay.
Oh, did you? There you go. Yeah, it's really you have to recognize that if you subject yourself to the same environment that has limited you before, there's no way that you can rise. It's going to be very, very difficult.
Yes.
So how do you change your environment? You change it first to make sure that you have that quiet space so you can really discover who you are, really understand what it is your true potential is, and start listening to that inner voice, because that inner voice is going to guide you, right? It's going to guide you. I have never ever, I think Einstein was the one that said it. We've got two minds. One is the gut, and the other one is the brain. Your gut, like sometimes your gut is telling you, don't do something, but your brain says it makes sense. You go with your brain and you always end up in trouble. Listen to that inner voice. That inner voice is very, very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways that I found that you could create the environment, again, the separate environment from the one for yourself, is just connecting with people. And there's so much potential online. I have made some tremendous friendships with people online who are of like minds. They've got the same kind of vision. They understand possibilities. And once you do that, it seems like, like you said, the universe sends you all these resources, all these people. And you're like, wait a minute, I was thinking about someone just like you. All right, let's get to it then, right?
It's that decision where you're going to move forward. And I remember saying to myself, and I realized that this is the limiting poverty mindset that a lot of us have, because I've had it, I'm only going to speak for myself, is that I thought, wow, if I do have to walk away from certain relationships, I won't say healthy, but just I'm not in alignment with those relationships. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be alone. And then one day I woke up to the fact that there were 7.5 billion people on this planet. I'll never be alone. What are you talking about? Especially with advanced technology and this. And I'm going to say this because it's a practice that I've done, and it really does work for, and I don't know what you've done is I've actually I've done a tremendous amount of work to, when they talk about die of self, move yourself into that reality, where I've moved myself into that reality to see, can I smell it? Can I feel it? Like, can it be a part of every, I'm redesigning my DNA or my chromosomes or whatever they call it, the brain structure. And when you can really, in that meditative state, when you can really put yourself in that reality, I remember many times waking up and looking literally physically in my house and thinking, it felt foreign to me, because I had already moved over into a different reality. It's the most bizarre thing.
But it is actually not that bizarre for the crazies like us.
Well, the smarts like us.
If you understand the law of attraction says that you focus on what it is that you want long enough and it will come. The the challenge is that people think that things just magically happen. But one of the things that was, I don't know if you ever saw the movie The Secret. One
Mm-hmm.
of the things The Secret didn't share is that in order for the law of attraction to really gain momentum in your life, you've got to add emotion to it. And exactly what you're talking about is putting yourself into that scenario in the future, what you really want, to the point where you can smell the smells that are going on. You can taste, if you really want to go to the into Paris to sit next to the river on a cafe, right? You should be able to hear the sound, smell it, because what happens is it doesn't sound as crazy as doesn't sound crazy. I mean, it's not as crazy as it sounds. Let's put it this way, because you have to remember that you've got your conscious mind and you've got your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is the one that actually has the power, but it also just takes what you give it and goes with it. So remember, Henry Ford said, "If you think you can't, and if you think you can,
You're
you're right."
right.
You're absolutely right. It doesn't matter what you think, that will happen to you. And so it really is your subconscious mind has been the one that has been programmed over the years. And really, and it's the one that creates the resistance that occurs if you decide to move out of what it accepts as normal. And so you have to now actively reprogram and reprogram the subconscious mind and let it know that there are possibilities. And there's so many books written on this. There's a science behind it. It's not woo-woo stuff, okay? Um,
It's funny because when we talk about the lies that we tell ourselves and then going into our truth and tying it into that topic and what you're talking about, it's like your body naturally knows. There's a saying from a Christian perspective, like from the book of Psalms, it says, "I give you the desires of your heart." Right. So your body actually knows. There's, in more the advanced age of spirituality, it talks about we all came for a purpose, and we know that we asked to be here. We're all here on a mission. It doesn't matter what religion or, it all comes from the same source. And I say, what feels right for Josephine, what that, if you want to call it crazy, is. And we're living this lie, and we've bought into the lie, and we've morphed ourselves into this lie that we have a hard time getting back to our truth. And as we move into it, doing this type of work, the meditation, the reason why it feels good when we're in that reality, when we get ourselves to that space, when we empty out our souls, we quiet our mind, we move from the gap into the creation process. The reason why it feels so good is because that's true for us. That is our truth, and it's sustainable. And I always suggest sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I always suggest to people that, if you do that work, always have a book and a pen nearby, or a book, a pen, and a mirror nearby, because then you reinforce it when you open your eyes and you're now awake. You now continue in a mirror where you look into the windows of your soul through your eyes, and you repeat that reality. And then you go to a book and you write down, you're grateful for the reality. You're grateful that you have this. You're grateful for that. And that gratefulness puts you in a higher frequency of even love, in a very high frequency. And you really lose sight, like this no longer, when you open your eyes to your old environment, it doesn't feel right to you. It doesn't feel at home, because you've actually morphed into a new reality.
And you morphed into a new person. I mean, I have a gratitude journal next to my bed. So as soon as I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is to be grateful for the air that I breathe. Because I always keep in mind that I'm breathing, but there's somebody out there that, may be taking their last breath, or may never have woken up. And so I have to be grateful for the fact that I can breathe when I wake up.
Yes.
And then, just like you said, I as soon as I wake up, the first thing I do is to think about all the things I'm grateful for. And when you do that, all of a sudden you start smiling. It could be the simple thing that I'm grateful that I have a blanket. I'm grateful I'm grateful for the snow. It's so beautiful. I'm grateful for the fact that I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful for the fact that I have food on my table. I'm grateful for the fact that I have people that love me, right? All these simple things. And people say, oh, well, you know, that's just, it's not, you cannot take it for granted. You cannot take it for
Yeah.
granted. It's almost as if, you know, when I was growing up, my parents always told me, you gotta eat because there are people, children in Africa starving.
Starving.
I was like, send the food to them.
Gina, oh my God, that's, I swear to you, that's what my husband told us. And I'm like, cheeky.
But yeah, but you have to be great. You have to live from that higher vibration, because what will happen is that your whole demeanor will change and you'll be a little bit more understanding of others. You have a lot more empathy, and your whole, because people I remember when I was in corporate, people used to call me Smiley, and always ask me the question, why am I smiling so much? And I used to tell them, well, I'm smiling because I woke up this morning. I woke up.
Right.
Do you know
Yes.
how powerful that is? I woke
Yes.
up, right? There are a lot of people that didn't, right?
Yes.
And the way that I got that was I heard Norman Vincent Peale. I don't know if you know Norman Vincent
Yes.
Peale.
Yes. Yes.
I heard him speak. He must have been about 90 years old. And I heard him speak. And one thing he said that really had an impact on me, he said a lot of people, you know, they always complain about how much problems they have and all this stuff. But he said, you know, the only people that don't have problems are the people that are 6 feet under. Be grateful you're not 6 foot under. So that's my mantra. I get up in the morning, thank you, God, that I'm able to breathe and I'm not 6 foot under.
Right.
Now I have the power to go out and live my life to the fullest. And the other thing is, my dad always said to me, you don't want to get to the end of your life and use the should have. I should have done this and I should have done that.
I said this in a couple of shows that I did, and it was the realization for me at one point in my life that I could actually fast forward myself to my deathbed and realize in that moment that I would have had a lot of regrets because I didn't live my true potential.
Yes.
I didn't do the things that I wanted to do. I wasn't true to who I was. And I remember those light bulb moments for me. It was like, okay, well, then it's time to stop. And I started to tell myself the truth of what I was capable of doing, because oftentimes, you know, I got to say, and I've said it to you offline, that I don't know if I can keep up with you personally, because you have such a great spirited energy and just lovely energy. And, you know, one of the things that I had to learn is to stop lying to myself, thinking that I could be everybody else as well. You know, well, she's got the right formula, or you have the right formula, and understanding what my formula was for me. And that is what I believe. Like, I'm more of a visionary creative person. So I'm not necessarily going to work 24 hours a day around the clock. And I've done it before in my life. And I'm going to tell you, I was no further ahead at the end. I was actually more further behind.
Right.
And I made the most progress in my life for anybody out there that, you know, struggles in this area, because we think that we're always judging ourselves to do more. My doing more was being in that quieter space in the creation process, to know myself, to understand myself, and then to anchor my own self in my own soul, so that I could have the courage and the strength to be myself and allow life to show up for me in that sense. And I say,
go ahead.
No, that was it.
I was just going to say, you're absolutely correct, because I do believe that we each are given a gift. We're not the same. We cannot be the same. God did not make robots all out of one single mold. We all have these innate qualities that together we fit together like a puzzle. And I remember one of those personal development courses that I went on. There was one exercise that, again, I have these as I go through my life, there are all these things that happen to me, these experiences I have, and they have a very deep impact on me, and I'll never forget them.
Yes.
There was one exercise where there was about 200 of us, and we gathered into this room, this huge meeting room, and it was late at night, around 9 o'clock at night, and every light in that room was switched off, so it was pitch dark. And one of the facilitators came to, and we all had candles. We all had candles, and the facilitator came to one person and lit their candle, and then that person lit the candle to the left and to the right. And then everyone continued lighting the candle. By the time it was all done, the room was as bright as day, like noon. It was huge, right? And then we were allowed the opportunity to just let it all sink in. And then we were asked to blow out the candles. So I want you to imagine this. First off, the room gradually became lit until there was this beautiful, all-encompassing light.
I can imagine it, like, just as you're saying it, I can visualize it.
Right? And then all of a sudden, in a split instant, everyone blew out their candles and bam, back into darkness.
Mm.
And the symbolism of this whole exercise was that they really wanted us to understand that all of us are unique characters within this puzzle that we play, like the puzzle that we're putting together here on earth. We all have these innate gifts. We each have to shine. We have to allow ourselves to shine. We have to stop telling ourselves the lies that keep us being limited and not letting us live on purpose and live to our full potential. Once we allow ourselves to shine, we are able to be examples that other people will inspire others to let their light shine, and so on and so on and so on. And the lesson was that if you don't allow yourself to shine, what a deep, dark place this world will be.
Mm.
Just because of that,
breathe that in for it's like,
just because of that, I can never not make sure that I question myself every day. Is this a lie I'm telling myself? Right? Is this something that's going to limit me? Does it feel like it's draining? And you can actually tell if it's a lie by the impact on your energy. And the more that you spend the time getting in doing meditation, getting in touch with who you are, the easier it is for you to be able to distinguish what is going to be energy producing or energy draining.
Mm-hmm.
If it's energy draining, then you know that there's something wrong. And you need to look and see, okay, how can I? It could be an environment. It could be something that when you say to yourself, you actually feel like it's heavy, weighing heavy on you, right? So that's the signal. Wait a minute, there's something wrong here. It's not in alignment with my spirit. I don't feel happy. Feeling happy and feeling joy every single day is the greatest gift you've got. Mm-hmm. And we just keep not, preventing ourselves from really exploring this whole depth of joy and being able to help, basically being an inspiration for other people.
Absolutely.
So people have your light shine.
Jeez. And you know what? I'm sure for you, and I'm listening to you, and I know I've spoken to you many times, and it really has to do with, when I think about you, Josephine, you've had to have a tremendous amount of courage to start to do the work, the important work, I believe, to know yourself, to understand yourself, to study yourself, and then to be able to take that truth of who you are and be able to interact with the world with the truth of who you are, unapologetically, boldly, fiercely, just comfortable. And I feel powerful even saying it on your behalf, like, just
thank you,
ready to go out there and be like, this is who I am. And not even I come as I come, not even from that perspective, but really with that feeling of, thank you, God, for working through me, using me. And you're open, thanking yourself for being open to having that type of courage, so that people will be able to do the same, because you're only going to attract people in your life that are going to want to do that as well, and want to know, okay, well, if she did it, I can do it too. Right?
Exactly. So for me, the greatest gift I can give anyone is just being the best me I can.
Right.
Because by being the best me I can demonstrate to them that they have the opportunity to do the same. And It's funny because someone asked me just earlier today, what do you think your purpose in life is? And there was no hesitation. My purpose in life is to help others reach their full potential in their lives. It's just like a given. It's like this purpose that I've got, that I need to shake people up and say, hey, you know what? Don't limit yourself. Right. Don't believe the lies that people tell you. Don't tell lies to yourself. wake up and realize that you are a beautiful human being and you've got all this potential in you. And even though people may say that, oh, you're too old, Abraham Lincoln, you're too young. No, did you see that? You're too fat. I saw someone doing a split when they were fat.
You know what, the one thing I've always heard over the years, and this is outside of if you're an engineer, like the more technical stuff, but more from the perspective of people that wanted to help people later on in their life that wanted to get into either coaching or some sort of healing modality. All of a sudden, the fear, but they didn't realize it was fear. Well, I got to go get an education. I got to go back to school for it. And I'm just like, but you were born with the gift. Like, it's your natural gift. Yeah, but people aren't going to take me seriously. And I said, well, then you haven't taken yourself seriously.
Exactly.
And they're like, why? And they said, well, I said, if you think I went back to school to spend the next 10 years of my life, I said, what are you talking about? I said, guys, I remind you guys that the high school, there were a lot of high school dropouts that became self-made billionaires, not millionaires, billionaires. And the ones that stayed in school studying and getting all these student loans and creating debt are now working for the dropouts that are billionaires. I said, I'm going to tell you. And as I walked them through their life experience, I said, you think a course is going to teach you that? You just went through real life experience of stuff you had to overcome.
Yes.
You are more resourceful, talented. You got more than, and you're going to pay money for them to tell you something out of a textbook, and your wealth is sitting in your experiences of life. Are you like, it blows my mind. I can't wrap my head around that. The whole education bit.
Well, for me, I mean, I went through, I have a graduate degree. I've done it, but I'll tell you something. Everything that's in the text, by the time it gets to the textbook, it's obsolete.
You're obsolete. Yes.
Okay. So what you're actually learning from is stuff that is not even going to work in today's world.
Yes.
So you might as well get into the game. Learn from people who are actually doing it. No one really, especially, and I know for myself, if I look at even a book that was written 6 months ago, it's changed already. Everything has changed already. Because I live in a world that is constantly changing, like day by day, right? And so the people that I want to learn from are the people that are actually doing it and are going to raise their hand and say, hey, you know what? I told you this worked yesterday. It doesn't work today. When you go into the typical education system, that was meant to actually make us into employees.
Right.
I mean, I did my MBA. And we were trained to go out and manage somebody else's business, not to do our own business. There's hardly, when I went to school, it was revolutionary for, I remember my first entrepreneurial professor. He was a revolutionary. Nobody had entrepreneurial courses out there. And he came in and he taught us how to, but all the other courses were really, how do you manage employees? How do you do, and it is all standard stuff. And then you come into the real world and you realize none of it works.
It's like taking kids into schools and, they're missing all the fun. And I think that there should be courses that kids get to understand who they are, know themselves, tap into their creativity, and I'm telling you, even for myself, I grew up in that environment where, you go to school, you get a good job. To me, I was supposed to aspire to be the big CEO. I had these dreams of being my own self-made. However, I was torn between these two worlds, getting nowhere, because I was living from the belief system that I had to get a job. I had to work for somebody. I wasn't taught that I could support myself. So in the earlier stages of starting out, even though I was doing what I wanted to do, it was more like a hobby. Oh yeah, she's just doing her little hobby. Right? But no, because nobody taught me that it was okay to make a living doing what I love doing. Nobody, or being the truth of who I am. I couldn't make a living expressing the real me. I had to express something else because this was safe. There was no safety in, and that was a lie.
And we have to, as adults that have gone through that, and knowing that the world is not the world, there is no limitations. I remember Wayne Dwyer saying that most of us go to the ocean of life with a thimble. When you have to, so we have the scarcity mindset that there's we're not enough, but there's not enough for all of us.
Right.
Right. And this ocean just keeps replenishing and replenishing. I think we need to ensure that we create an environment that will foster the development of young people's minds, as you
Yes.
said. So one of the things that's really near and dear to my heart is actually setting up a foundation that will help fuel young people's entrepreneurial dreams, give them access to the information that most times we don't get access to until we're adults.
Mm.
They should be taught this when they're 8, 9, 10 years old, so that they can know that there are unlimited possibilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they understand, change their relationship with money, really understand how money works, so they're not fearful of it, so they don't waste it, so they understand how to build wealth. They understand how to take that internal wealth that they've got and have it manifested on the outside. And I think that's one of the great, so for me, that's one of the things that is in my plans, is to create a foundation so we can help these young people. Because
It's
they
funny
really
when
do
you
need it.
talk about wealth, and I had just a couple of days ago, I was upset over I couldn't find my institution, and I had been charged $3 to take my money out of a different instant teller.
Mm-hmm.
And I had sent a picture of the bank, the little slip that you get out of the machine. And my girlfriend says, nice bank balance. And I said to her, isn't this normal? Doesn't everybody have a bank balance like this? I won't tell you what the amount was, but it was in a 7-digit figure. And she said, I said, shouldn't this be normal? Shouldn't we normalize this? And she said, and she goes, I'll get there soon, or something like that. She said to that effect. And I thought, when you talk about kids, it's like we should normalize,
Yes.
them being able to see wealth from this perspective, that it's just currency, it's just money,
It is.
and
It is.
having that healthy relationship with it, like it just being normal. Like this should just be normal. Like
It is.
we shouldn't even be talking about wealth creation or anything. This is just normal.
It is. It is. And the fact is that everything that is normal comes from habits, right? And
Right.
habits come from beliefs and actions and so on. So it comes right back to it, is the lies we tell ourselves.
Right.
It's right back to it.
It's funny because, my husband and I, we always said to our kids when they were younger, we were like, you can either go for a job that pays you $10 million a year, or you can go for the job that pays you $50 million a year, or you can create the company on your own that you start out making $50 million, or you can and grow that company to 100 million. So they, in their mind, they've never heard, when I grew up, it was like you get a $50,000 a year job, right? And that was it. And then you're set for life. And if you made it to $100,000 a year, you were a millionaire. Like you were just, where I realized that they had set the ceiling from your childhood. You're set, the ceiling is set. And to come out of that, it feels abnormal, because you say between 0 to 7, this is what's instilled in you.
Yep.
Where I thought, when I woke up to that, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to tell my kids, and they're going to start at 10 as being like, ooh, like that's not really 10, really. So,
but it's
like,
it's funny you should say that, because remember I told you my dad was an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And being an entrepreneur in the Caribbean, one of the things that, and this comes back to the lie as well, because that lie actually molded my actions all the way through my career. And it's only something that when someone shook me about 2 years ago, I realized, ooh, that's wrong. That's not right. Right. But my dad was an entrepreneur. So the conversations that we had, the word job was a bad word to him.
Yes.
It was like a really bad word.
Yes.
Right. It was not allowed. It's like when my son was growing up, I always told him there were some words he must never use. He must never use the word hate. He must never use the word can't. He must never use the word try. Those were bad words.
Yes.
So if he used that, no. So we replaced those words. And with my dad, job was, you're giving up your power. You're giving up your potential. You're giving up everything to work for someone else, to work for their dream. So for him, even though when he started up poor and he had to work, but he always had this ambition. He wanted to be his own man. And he instilled in us that we should as well. But one of the things that he and my mom, my whole family, is this whole concept of you need to work hard. You need to work hard. And I grew up, I still fight with that whole concept. Even though when I was, going to university, it's like, okay, we work smart, not hard. We work smart and hard, right? The working hard bit, that is a lie that we tell ourselves,
Yeah.
especially if we come from immigrant families.
Yeah.
You need to work hard in order to be successful. And the funny thing is, when you look at successful people, the majority of them don't work hard because they realize that first of all, the way that the wealthy think are completely different to us.
Yes.
They think about leverage versus your own hours. They
Yes.
also think about collaboration, right? Where we think competition. So it really is a mindset shift that we have to go through, and it comes down to our belief systems. Working hard, for me, I was never afraid of working hard. I would plow it out, like just, put my nose to the metal grindstone and just go for it, right? And then that was one of the factors that ended up making me fall ill as well. Right. That's what made me feel I could be a superwoman, that I could power on through anything. And when I ended up falling sick and thinking about, well, you know what? There were a couple of things that I needed to say no to. Even though I thought I could do it, I needed to say no. I didn't have to work that hard. Right. So that's one, I think a lot of people, especially if they're ambitious, that's a lie that they may not even think is a lie because it just seems normal. It's accepted. It's what happens. I didn't realize that it was not normal until someone said to me, "Do you have a martyr syndrome?"
I've had that said to me too. I've had that said to me. We've got a couple minutes left on the show, but I've got to make a note to say we're going to have you back on so we can talk about the martyr syndrome, because that is a whole topic in itself on how we play martyrs, right? And how we can dissolve that, because it is that I think that's something that people really need to come out of. It's a space that we are in, and that it's a tough one to crack that code of coming out of that martyr syndrome. So if we had to leave the audience with one nugget that you feel that they can start living in their truth, what would that be?
If there was one thing I want to leave the audience with, it's, if you're going to doubt anything, doubt your limitations. There are no limitations. You are enough. You were born enough. And listen to that inner voice. It's going to tell you some things that you may have not been aware of. So you need to really get that silent space and really understand that you are so much more than you think you are.
Absolutely. Josephine, it, as always, is a pleasure speaking to you. I'm very, very honored and grateful that I've been able to, thank you for allowing me to share you with my audience on Tanya Talks here tonight. Just a gem, a wealth of information, a lot of personal life experience that I think I can learn from you. And just a breath of fresh air. What else do I say than that? So anybody out there, the Bradley Gale Media Group, Josephine's on LinkedIn. She's on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. She's got her own website. You can visit her, social media strategist, which helps businesses leverage social media so that they can build an authority status online. So any of you out there in this pandemic that has decided to go out on your own and start living your own truth, you've got somebody right here with great experience, just obviously knows how to put the work into it. So
and the funny thing is that I always tell people, if they look for me, all they have to look for is Josephine Marcellin. I don't hide. Right. I'm the same on every platform.
Right. So there you go. Right. So it was a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you for having me
tonight. Yes. And if you're looking for a breakthrough conversation, to clear the path and get your life to the next level, please visit TanyaRicketts.com to get started. You guys, thank you for tuning in tonight. As always, I appreciate your time as you tune in and listen to these great conversations right here on Tanya Talks. All right. Have a good evening, everybody. And thank you, Josephine, once again.
You're very welcome.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.